everybody, and welcome back to the Men's Leadership Network podcast. Hope and pray you've had a great season, and God's been doing great things in your life. I'm here today with Tom Atema, and Tom is an amazing man, and just so thankful for him, and just the willingness to share with us today as we talk about planning for a new year, because we stand on the brink of a new year, and so I just think this is so timely for us, but these are also principles that I hope and pray people take with them throughout their year and live, because planning makes such a huge difference. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Isn't that the right thing?
Yeah.
So, Tom, tell us a little bit about you and your family, your career.
Yeah, so thanks for having me.
Sure.
Should be a lot of fun. And so I have a wife who's my best friend. We've been married for a while. I have 2 kids. John Thomas is 10, and my daughter Lily is 4. We live here in Franklin. It's been a lot of fun with them. My career has always been around the audiovisual field. I started running sound in church, and got involved with a local church running sound like that, and kind of took off from there, working for a ministry my dad worked with, and I went to school for it, and then moved to New Jersey and got a job for a company that ran sound and provided sound and audiovisual work for companies, which I didn't even know was a thing.
Yeah.
So went and did that. Moved to Tennessee shortly after 9/11, and then shortly after that started my own company, doing the same thing. We provide audiovisual support for companies having corporate meetings and events. So it's a lot of fun.
And now your company has kind of gone big.
Yeah, God, I say that God's blessed us immeasurably more than we could ever imagine or hope for. We are in 33 countries and 21 states, and grow every day. And it's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun to see how God's blessed and led and worked in ours. It's been a ride. It's been fun.
I love that. I love it. And Tom, I mean, we're blessed, or I'm blessed, just to be good friends. Angie, your wife, and Lisa were roommates in college, and so we've been on a great journey together. And when we planted Rolling Hills, I mean, you and Angie, part of the first 15, so I feel like we've been doing church together and doing life together for 13 years, and just watching God do immeasurably more. It's been exciting.
It's been a lot of fun. In fact, that's how Angie and I started dating, was going to the planning meetings for Rolling Hills, come up with the names and all that stuff. Is how we started hanging out. So
isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
I mean, what's happened since that? It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I remember you and I would be in the rain and the snow setting up sound equipment over at the Marriott Hotel, and then heading over to the movie theater. It's just been wild. So thank you for the difference that you've made in my life and the life of many of us through Rolling Hills, and just in the life of your company. And I love and appreciate you, my friend. So,
Thanks.
Yeah. So, well, tell us a little bit about this. You're one of the best planners I know. I mean, you plan down to the detail, and you do it really well. So why is that important to you?
So I think it's all about being intentional. I think that's a big key word for me. I think God created us intentionally, and to do intentional things, you have to plan in order to do that. You have to take time out of your schedule to really come up with a plan, an idea of how you're going to be intentional and how you're going to use what God gave you and do that. And if you don't take time to plan it, then what are you going to do? You're just going to be bouncing all over the place and doing different things and never really focused in on really what God wants you to do.
Yeah. Why don't more people take the time to plan then? Why do you think?
I don't know. I think that up until I started planning, I just was kind of trying to, other people would tell us, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to focus on this, you need to read this book. And I let other people dictate to me what I wanted and what this is what your life needs to be, this is what you should do, this is the definition of success. And I got to the point where I'm like, I don't understand why your definition of success needs to apply to me. So I started asking myself some questions. Like, what do I want to be? What are my future hopes and dreams? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to not look back on my life and regret not doing? So that to me is that's how I started this whole process of over-planning my life.
Well, talk about that. I mean, how did you start? Because it doesn't sound like planning was at the forte of your life before, but now, I mean, that really is what you do and what you do really well.
It's definitely something that's evolved over the years. I started with, I had my son, John Thomas, and I started the company, and I was really busy, and I travel a fair amount for my job. I think it's all relative. My wife thinks I travel a lot. And I do. I travel quite a bit. So I wanted to make sure that one day my son didn't come to me and say, I wish you were home more, or I wish my dad was around, or worse, that I look back and regret the decisions that I made. So I wanted to create these guardrails around my life that protected the time I was home. And it was very selfish. I wanted to protect this time I was home so that I would have a better outcome in the future when my son looked back or I looked back over my life. So it was kind of a selfish reason to have, and it was all about time. And like I have these guardrails that are all around my time and what I do when I'm home.
Wow. I love that word, guardrails. You know, you just use that word twice, and I think it's so powerful. Talk about that. I mean, how did you come up with this concept of putting? I mean, I love the visual image that comes with the guardrails that protect you. But how did you come up with that idea, and how does that influence your whole idea about planning?
Yeah, so the whole concept to me is I needed something visual, and I needed something written down that did that. So the guardrail concept was, it's just what's on the side of the road. It's the guardrails you have on the side of the road where they're not going to stop you from going off the road, but they're going to hinder that. It won't be as easy to fly off the road. And you have to be intentional about keeping yourself within that lane. And then the other side of it is you can ride a guardrail really, really close, and it'll do a lot of damage to your car, and it'll do a lot of damage to your life if I ride these guardrails right on the edge of my life. But if I can have these guardrails and then live in between them to the best of my ability, I believe that that will make me a better person and a better father and a better husband at the end of the day.
Wow. Well, can you tell us about some of the guardrails? Tell us a little bit about what those are.
So, I have 7 guardrails. Every year, and I think we'll go into this a little later, every year I revisit these guardrails to make sure they're still relevant. So I'll tell you my guardrails. So I have no meetings before 8:30 in the morning for anything. That means I'm home. So when I'm home until 8:30 in the morning. I take my son and or my daughter to school. That's the second one. So that's why it's 8:30, because school starts at 8:35, and we live literally across the street from my son's elementary school. So I can go right there. I'm home for dinner. Every day I'm home, so that means I have to leave my office by 5:30 in order to make it home for dinner. On Mondays, I have lunch with my son at his school. I assume one day that'll change. That's why I revisit these, but right now he likes it, so I have lunch with my son at school. Angie and I take a trip, just the two of us, for at least 3 days once a year. I surprise John Thomas with a trip once a year. It's an overnight trip. We've done 3 of those. That's a lot of fun. And I spend 1 full day with my daughter, Lily. So those are my 7 guardrails for 2016. So they've been a lot of them have been the same over the years. I've been doing this, it's probably about 4 or 5 years, but yeah, those are the ones for 2016.
I love that. I love that. Now, how did you come up with those?
I totally made them up.
Okay.
So I asked this question. I heard Andy Stanley gave this message series, and he asked this question, and it really stuck with me. He said, based on your past experiences, your current circumstances, and your future hopes and dreams, what do you need to do? So to me, that was like, well, my future hopes and dreams is I want to be a good dad. Right, and that's how I started these guardrails. I want to be a good husband. I want to be home. So what do I need to do? I'm a workaholic. I'm work all the time. And my current circumstances, I have a small son and a small daughter. So what do I need to do? I need to fill my time with these 7 guardrails, and they're specific for me. It doesn't work. You couldn't take the 7 guardrails. You have different current circumstances or different past experiences, and it has to fill in there. The other thing that's important to know is that I can't override them. So I set up a rule, so Angie can override these. So if I have a meeting that shows up before 8:30 in the morning, I have to go get permission from Angie, which means it better be a good reason why whatever it is I'm asking for is more important than my kids. Because I set my kids as a priority, and I set when I'm home as a priority. Because I don't limit my travel, but I limit the time I spend outside at home to do that.
That's so good. I mean, it really is, because that gives you the parameters, right? From which you can then turn around and plan and put in place all the things. Everything else. I love that. I love that. And I think a lot of people skip over that, right? I think a lot of people just go straight into, I want to accomplish this, and these are my goals, these are my objectives. But if you don't have the guardrails in place, you don't have anything to keep you in between the lines.
What's going to keep you there?
Yeah.
You come up with all the great plans in the world, but if you don't know what your end is and you don't know what's going to keep you on the road, because it's tempting. There's a lot of great things out there. There's a lot of great things to do, and I could fill, like any guy could fill from 2 o'clock in the morning again till 2 o'clock in the morning with something to go do that. It's all great things. But I don't want to look back with regrets on how I raised my family and how I did stuff.
Wow, I love that. And I love that word intentional. I think
very, very intentional. It's a theme of my life, pretty much, is to be intentional.
And it's been a theme here at Men's Leadership Network. We've heard it over and over again. Guys talk about it. I'm going to be intentional. And you come back to that. Talk to me about how you plan. Like, we're coming into a new year, 2016, kicking it off, and so how do you plan for a new year? Specifically, talk about that.
Yeah. So I started with the guardrails, and we moved into the next evolution of that, which was you asked me about planning for the new year. So Angie and I take this trip every year. We do it in the fall. It's in November, December usually. and it's just the two of us, and it's to spend time together, but there's an expectation that's set before we go that we will look at my guardrails, and then we'll look up. It started with just creating a list of things we thought was important to address, talk about, or we want to accomplish in the next year. So it started with just a small list of things, and it's grown into 4 or 5 different categories of stuff now that we just want to be intentional about. But the big thing is Angie and I spent time away. We took time away to go come up with this list of what we wanted to do. And the biggest thing about it, and the underlining part of the whole thing, is to make sure that Christ and Jesus is the number one priority in everything.
I love that.
Because it's so easy to drift off course and get sucked into, Pastor Nick talks about it a lot, get sucked into all the good stuff that your kids are doing at school and at sports and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, no, we've got to keep Christ priority in our lives. So we have to be intentional about it, back to our word, right? To intentional about doing that. So Angie and I have a trip, and that trip and that's the purpose, is to talk through this stuff. And it's gotten more and more, so the trip had to get longer and longer.
But it's fun, though. You two get to be away and spend time together.
It's actually, the first time I suggested this idea to Angie, and I'm like, I was nervous about it. Because I'm like, how's she gonna take this? Am I gonna be like one of those, we are going to do this? And, well, that would go over. So, but it's not, it's a conversation. And it's turned into a conversation where Angie and I are more aligned. We're on the same page. We're coming to big decisions together as one couple. Raising a family, ministering to people, and it's freeing. Wow. It really is. It's time together.
Well, I love what that shows about your marriage. I love what that shows about you as a dad. And I think that really sets the pace for the new year. These are going to be our priorities, these are going to be our goals, but we're doing this together. It's not like you were saying, not dictatorial and saying, this is what we're going to do. It's, hey, we're on the same page as a family.
But I think as the husband, it's my responsibility to drive that conversation.
Be the spiritual leader.
And be the spiritual leader, and just be the leader of my household and say, this is important to me. Let's talk about it. And if you think it's really stupid, then, maybe we won't do it. But she didn't. She thought it was, enough that we've done it for 4 or 5 years now.
That's great.
And it keeps getting bigger, and she's coming with ideas, and she's coming with parts. But I think as guys, we have to be the ones that initiate this conversation. And do it. And it might be that you have to initiate going away by yourself, to go into a park, and just come with your guardrails first.
Yeah.
Before you go to your wife and say, hey, we need to come with this together. Well, you got to have your own guardrails in place. What is your future hopes and dreams, and how can we create guardrails to help do that?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, as a man, if you're the one stepping into that, your spouse is going to respond in an incredible way. Because you're the one taking the initiative to be the spiritual leader and to set those guardrails, and then to say, honey, we want to be on the same page, and we get one shot at raising kids, right? We don't get this time back. So, John Thomas and Lily are only going to be this age for a certain amount of time, and then that's it. So give us a glimpse just kind of into you and Angie talking about, what are some things that you would talk about? I mean, obviously there's family things or...
Yeah, so we kind of break it down to, because I own a business, so it's a little different. So we talk about the business, we talk about our giving, we talk about tithes and offerings. We view them as 2 separate things. They're not the same thing in our opinion. We talk about how we're going to minister, how we're going to do our family. So we have different categories of stuff now. And it's not a long list. The whole thing fits on one piece of paper. I can't do a book. I tried journaling. I can't journal. So it's like I need just simple, bullet-pointed lists. And that's our plan. That's our plan to make sure that I'm a good husband, a good father, a good boss, and a good spiritual leader. I think that is the...
That's it. Yeah, I like that. Get it on one page.
One page.
Yeah. When you talk about like your job or your career, how do you plan there?
So for us, what I do is it goes back to intentional.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to be intentional with my employees and my coworkers and the people that we work with. So I have one-on-one lunch. Very specific examples. I have one-on-one lunches. I used to do it once a month, but we've grown so much I don't have that kind of time anymore. So I do it 6 times a year with each one of my employees. And they know what this lunch is because I have no agenda. I don't come with anything prepared. I don't come with anything but a bunch of paper. And they can ask me anything they want about any topic they want, and I will do my best to answer it. So I think that really helps them understand that I'm on their team. I want to help them. My job as a boss is to equip them to do their jobs better. So I want to give them this voice and this opportunity to do that. But it's finding ways to be intentional. I think anyone can do that. Whether you don't have to be an owner of a company to do that. If anyone reports to you, if you just spend some intentional time thinking, how can I help this person? how can you help me? Or it just might just be time. Just spending time with the person, developing a better relationship with them can really help to get better. I think you asked about my career too. I think, the career, this year the goal is for me is personal development. I do a lot of reading, but I've always done reading like somebody say, here, read this book, or here, this is a great book. And it's not been focused on what I want to get better at. It's just been, I guess I need to read this. I, work in the audiovisual world. I guess I need to read this magazine, read this book. It's not, I don't spend any time thinking about what does God want me to learn? What does God want me to do so I can be the best person I am at my current circumstances, which is the owner of a company. So I might not be an owner all the time, and something might happen in the future that'll change. So how can I develop skills now and develop things now for my career that could be the future?
Wow. I love that. I love the way you're thinking out. Do you do like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year,
No,
or do you?
I'm not smart enough for that. We do 1 year at a time. So, and it goes back to that question I said before, where it's like, it's my past experiences and my current circumstances and my future hopes and dreams. What do I want to do in my job for the next year?
Yeah.
What do I want to do with my family next year? What do I do with tithing for the next year? What do I do? And that's the question Angie and I take to each one of the areas that we do stuff in. And it's just for that year. Now there's more longer term stuff, but that's not what this is for. This is not family strategic planning.
I love how you spend time with each employee. You said 6 times a year that you'll go to lunch or something like that. But I mean, every guy, you're just having time with your boss and just being able to talk, but you're also listening to where they're saying is happening in the company, and that's allowing you to make even smarter decisions for the company going forward.
I think so. And one of the surprising things to me about those lunches is that people, it's not all work.
Yeah.
This might sound weird, but these are people, and sometimes their personal, what they're going through personally is more important, more on their head, and they need someone just to listen to them. They don't need something to be done. They just need someone to listen to them about it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And it's a selfish reason, I think, because if they're better personally, they're going to do a better job. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But I want to be intentional about making the time.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for my job, is to make time for people, be intentional about making time. So they prioritize lunches for me. So that's, the plan is that I have to have lunch with them 6 times a year. So I don't mind having lunch with other people, but if I have to move an employee, no. I won't do that.
Well, yeah, man.
And that's the joy of a plan, right? So
Yeah.
the plan, I have a written down plan that I'm going to do this. I can say no.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I don't feel guilty about saying no. I used to. I've stopped feeling guilty about saying no because I'm intentional.
Yeah.
I have a plan. I can say no to other things that come up.
Yeah. That's what a plan helps you do.
That's what a plan helps you do.
Yeah. So, with your family, when you talk about you set plans or set goals with, you talked about vacations, I think you mentioned. I think you mentioned time. I think you mentioned serving. Unpack that for us.
Yeah, so the family, it's all different categories for
Okay.
us. So the family is a time, and we get somewhat specific. Like for this year, we're going to try to do the 4 present plan. I don't know what else to call it. I think Pastor Nick talked about it, right? A couple Sundays ago. Yeah. So for birthdays and birthdays and Christmas, John Thomas or Lily or Angie or I will only get 4 presents. It's that something you need, something you want, something you read, and something you wear. I think Nick did it where it rhymes, and I didn't do that. But so and that's important for us because Angie and I together came up with this idea. Like it just got to be too much.
Yeah.
Christmas was just too much, and this was even before. We did this before Christmas, and Christmas was still too much.
Yeah.
Where it's like we want to do that. That's what's going to work for us based on our past experiences of overdoing it in our current circumstances and the future hopes and dreams that we don't want my kids to be spoiled. I want them to appreciate what they have. I want them to put thought into. You better ask something that you want. You better be specific about what you want and really think about it. To me, that was what really brought me to that. I like that. I like John Thomas. You need to think about what do you really want, because you only get one thing.
Yeah.
So what is that? The other thing we do is we plan screen time for John Thomas and Lily, what that looks like and what that is for the year. We do our family vacation, get it on my calendar. So once it's on my calendar, I'll plan trips. I said earlier that I don't limit my work travel, but if there's something on my calendar like family vacation, then that takes priority over it. So it has to get on my calendar early. Or for that, we do Sunday as a family day for us. We come to church together as a family. John Thomas goes to Main Street, and Angie volunteers, and I volunteer sometimes. Then we go out to lunch together. We spend Sunday together as a family. And then this year we added an extra trip for Angie and I. We thought it was just important for Angie to get away without expectations of having to do something, come up with a list. Just a trip. So that's our family plan for this year.
Wow. Talk about screen time. You mentioned that. Oh, yeah, unpack that for us, because I think we all deal with that, right? I mean, iPads, iPhones. I mean, it's just like.
And yeah, it drives me nuts. So we haven't come up with a good answer.
Okay.
I don't have a good answer. And this is probably a good time, as I need to mention. We've tried screen time 3 years now, 3 different ways, and it has not worked. We tried doing it where it's 2 hours a week. We've tried doing it where it's just on the evenings. This time we're trying to do it where it's 4 p.m. on Friday through 4 p.m. on Sunday. So it's the weekend. So we're just going to keep trying different things until we find something that works, or I get frustrated and throw them all away. One or the other. But, so it's important, that's to keep trying different things to figure out what works for you and your family. And we do different ideas, get different books. My daughter broke her leg, so she couldn't move, so she got extra screen time. Yeah. Because she couldn't crawl, she couldn't walk, she couldn't do anything, so she got a little extra screen time. So it's flexible, but that's a tough one. I don't have an answer for screen time.
Well, but I love that you're addressing it. I think if you don't address it, it takes all the time, right? And you can't even have a conversation with your kids or with family, but everybody's just standing there like that, And man, I love that you were intentional to even think about the small things on that. Yeah. So, talk about, you mentioned too about giving and serving. How do you plan your giving and your serving for a new year? Yeah.
So. Like I said before, tithing and offerings are 2 different things for us, and that's as far as money goes.
Okay.
So tithing is straight 10% of my salary, and I believe it goes right to your local church, which for us is Rolling Hills Community Church. And that's where my responsibility ends. So I'm responsible to give it, and my accountability stops once I give it. So we don't designate our tithe, we don't special whatever the tithe, it is 10%. We put a list at the top on our sheet that I create, has the total year of the tithe that I would give. It's easy to know. I know what my salary is, 10%, got a number.
There it is.
It's not that complicated to figure out, and I can do that kind of math, 10% simple. So that's one lump sum. So that's tithing, and it's non-negotiable. That's the first thing. It's already on the list when we go to the meeting to do it. The rest of it is how are we going to spend our time, spend our offerings, which are monies above our tithe, how we're going to spend, what we're going to serve in, and this is where it gets a little more, we spend a lot of time talking about this. So we have 6 organizations that we support outside of Rolling Hills Community Church with our offerings and our time and our services. And the way we come up with these is Angie has some and I have some. And there's some on the list that are for me, and there's some on the list that are for Angie. Because it's our time together and our trusting together. And we really go back to Nehemiah for how to answer this, is what breaks your heart? What is it that I feel so called by God to give my time or money or time to, to make a difference in? And I think that's what's important. And we limit it to 6 things. Because there's a lot of great organizations out there, and there's a lot of great people out there, but I can't make a significant difference in 37 organizations. But Angie and I together can make a significant difference in 6 organizations. And it's not all money. We give a lot of time. I mean, and they're not all faith-based. I mean, one of the ones that we really support a lot is Best Buddies. Because my daughter has Down syndrome, and Best Buddies is an amazing organization that I want to have around when my daughter needs it, which is in a couple years when she goes to middle school. So we support that. It's not a Christian organization. I think that's okay. We use offering money for that. We use time for that. We spend a lot. Angie does a lot of work with them, volunteering. But I think we're intentional about these are the 6 things, which also allows us to say no to other stuff, which is all great stuff. But we can't make a big difference in all these different organizations. So you got to figure out what it is that really, and it took us a while to realize how to make these decisions. And it's really what is God really saying? This is what you need to do. This is, because you know that feeling. I think everybody knows that feeling. Like you watch something, you read something, you get something like, oh, that my heart's breaking for that. And your wife's like, what? Yeah. What are you talking about? That's okay. That's what God's designed you to do. You can make a difference in that organization's life. So that's how we do our giving and our serving.
Man, I love that. I just think that you can't do everything, right? So, but we can all do something. And yet, if you don't plan it, then otherwise you end up doing nothing. So.
Well, or you're just like, well, here's $50 here, here's $10 here, here's
Yeah.
$20 here,
Yeah,
here's 20
yeah.
bucks there, and it means nothing.
Yeah, right.
There's no meaning to it. It's just reactionary giving.
Right.
You can't be proactive and make a difference in
Mm-hmm.
an organization's life. Think if you gave all your resources into like 3 organizations,
Yeah.
right? That it's like, and one of them could be the church.
Yeah.
Angie and I give a lot of time
Yeah.
and devotion to the church too. It's one of our 6 ministries is the church, because you need to do that. But if you're spread out over everything that comes across your plate, I mean, it's got to be a mess.
Yeah, it does.
And we were there.
Yeah.
We were totally there. And it's taken a while to get to this. Where it's like, it's taken a while to be okay with, I don't feel guilty saying, no, I'm sorry, we can't give to that.
Yeah.
It's a great organization. You do
Yeah.
amazing things.
Yeah.
And then I'm okay with people that don't give to organizations that I care about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, that's so good. Well, Tom, as you work through this plan, what happens when you get into the year and sometimes things get off track, or your time,
Oh, yeah.
or you have things that happen? How do you adjust to that?
So yeah, we review the old year at the beginning of the new. So
Okay.
like when we sat down in November, we went through our 2015 year, and some things had check marks by them, and some things didn't. And I keep that in my book. I've got a book that I carry around with me everywhere. So this stuff's with me everywhere I go. And it's okay. I'm okay if it didn't work. It's like the screen time thing. I just want to be intentional about trying. I'm okay with, we gave to that organization this year, but I don't think God's calling us to serve on that organization or to be on that board again next year. Okay, great. What is it that's fine. I think, I keep going back to the same quote. It changed my whole thing of everything. But your current circumstances are constantly changing. There'll become a day where my 10-year-old becomes 13 and probably doesn't want his dad coming to school and having lunch with him. Maybe, but I kind of doubt it. And that's okay. That guardrail will change. That plan will change. Because then maybe my daughter will want me to do it.
Right.
But as long as I'm intentional in talking to them about it and being proactive about it, I think it's okay. But things are going to change. It's not going to work. And it took years, like 4 or 5 years for Angie and I come to this point where we are now, where it looks like it's all laid out and organized and planned, and it wasn't. But it was being intentional about making a plan.
Yeah. I love that you're willing to adjust, because I think you have to. Because some things are going to happen. There's going to be things that are going to come up during the year that are going to make things to adjust, and not just saying, well, I'm going to hold on to this. But that gives you the framework for which all of the planning. Hey, you talked earlier about taking John Thomas on a trip every year. Tell us about, just give us a highlight of that.
Yeah, that is one of the highlights of my year. So Angie and I came with this plan, like I want to create memories for my son, because I am gone a lot. So I want to create some memories. So, luckily I have some airline miles. And so I wake John Thomas up at like 5 o'clock in the morning somewhere. He has no idea when it is. The first one was 3 years ago. Woke him up. In fact, I woke him up 3 years ago, and I said, we're going to go, just 2 of us are going to go away for the day. He's like, I better ask Mom. I don't know if I can leave or not. So there was that. But since then, he looks forward to it. I mean, it is a blast. We went to New York City just for a day, and we went to a free museum. We went to Dallas, we went to Detroit. It's not big exotic places. We didn't spend a lot of money. We just went and intentionally had a day and it turned into had to be one night because a day wasn't enough. I wanted more. It was selfish. I wanted more time with John Thomas, so it turned into we spend one night. And it's just the 2 of us, and we just do. He picks where we go to eat, which is places I wouldn't necessarily pick. He picks where we're going to go, but it's like we're going to go, like just a couple months ago, we went to the Henry Ford in Detroit. It's a museum. I mean, it was amazing. I had no idea the thing even existed. It was so much fun. John Thomas and I just walked around there. It was so cold. But it was just a blast to spend time with just me and just John Thomas with no other agenda. No, and I have this little rule that my phone's not really available. My staff knows, and they respect that. So it's a lot of fun.
That's great.
It's great.
I love that.
And I think you could do it locally.
Yeah.
Like I do with Lily. I don't think you have to. If you don't have the means or whatever to go out and take a trip, it doesn't matter. They just take them to the zoo.
Yeah.
Spend a day with just you and one kid at a time.
Yeah.
And it would make, and John Thomas talks about it. All his friends know you do it.
Yeah. I love that.
I know it's making a difference.
Yeah. Well, and I think for every guy out there, I mean, what I've heard you say is get some time alone so you can establish guardrails. As you move into a new year or a new season, you may even do it next year, but find a new season. Schedule some time with your spouse. Make sure you and your wife get some time together to plan together so you're on the same page. And then third, as if you're a dad, schedule some time with your kids. Be intentional. If you want to be the dad that God has called and created you to be intentional of that. Yeah. So tell me, Tom, what do you want your legacy to be?
So we said it a lot. I want to be known as someone that was intentional with everything that God gave me.
I love that.
I really do. I want to be intentional with my family, my job, my friends, my church, my money, my time. Everything. I know everything comes from God. And I want to be intentional. I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. I really do.
Yeah.
So, and how I get that is I have to be proactive and be intentional here to do that now with what I have.
Wow. I love that. And you are. I mean, I'll just say for everybody, you are. You know, I mean, you really live that well. And I get to see it up close and personal, but you live your life well. And I'm thankful for that. So give us 2 takeaways as we enter into this new year, as we kind of plan and prepare. Give us 2 takeaways from today.
So I think the thing is, and you said it, is you got to take time to plan. And you have to be intentional about making the time to plan. Because it was hard for me to sit down, clear everything out. I had to get a bunch of stuff done the very first time I did this, so my brain was somewhat clear, and say, what are my future hopes and dreams, and what do I need to do now to help me get there? Because if without having your future hopes and dreams, then you're just, what are you just living life? Yeah. So I think taking time to plan, taking the time to do that. And I think the second one is you got to write them down and you got to share them with somebody. For me, that's Angie, you know, and I'm not a big accountability partner person, but my wife is my best friend, you know, and for some people that might not be your circumstance. So find somebody that you can just say, help me know this. Some people just they don't hold you accountable. They just need to know you have it. It amazes me, you know, how many people know I have guardrails that I've never even met or talked to or have had this conversation with. And people know I have them. It blows my mind.
Wow, that's
It
amazing.
really does. But I think you have to write them down.
Yeah.
I really think you have to write them down. And if you have someone to share them with and someone help hold you accountable to them, that's great. But you have to write them down to at least hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
And then review them.
Yeah.
You know, we do it once a year, but.
Well, the writing down is huge. I mean, statistically, you
down.
accomplish so many more of your goals if you write them down than you do if you don't ever write them down. So I think you're exactly right. And then sharing them, I think that's a great insight. Because a lot of times we want to hold them close. But man, when other people know that, there is this kind of unwritten accountability, but it also motivates you to accomplish what God's put on your heart and your life, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tom, this has been great, I tell you. No, I mean, it's helpful for me because so often I get so busy, especially at the end of the year. But to take that time and to be intentional. And I hope this has been helpful for you. I really do. I hope and pray that you'll take some time, you know, in the next few days, next few weeks, and just say, hey, I want to be prepared. I want to be who God has called and created me to be in 2016 and beyond. So let me pray for us right now. Father, thanks for today. Thanks for Tom and for Angie. Thank you for their family. God, thank you for what you are doing in them and through them for your glory. God, I thank you for every man who's watching this podcast right now. And I pray, Father, that you would carve out time in their lives to spend with you first and foremost so that they can hear from you. And God, I pray that you would do, as Tom mentioned, immeasurably more in their life. Immeasurably more in their marriage, immeasurably more with their children, immeasurably more, Father, in their job and their career. And God, that you would do a great and mighty work through them, Father. And so thank you, God, for all you're doing in our lives. God, thank you that we get to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And thank you most of all for the gift of your Son. God, I pray 2016 would be our best year yet. Our best year, Father. And God, that we would give all glory to you. And it's in the name of Jesus that we pray. Amen. Amen. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in today, and be watching. We'll have another podcast coming in just a few weeks, and then we'll be back on in the spring with our weekly time. So hey, enjoy it and live your life for the glory of God. Blessings on you.